Welcome. In this lecture, we'll talk about the resources and capabilities, what we mean by those terms, and how we analyze and think about where we find the resources that this organization has and the capabilities that we have to do things with those resources, as well as what capabilities we might need and resources we might need. Kind of begin by defining those terms and then moving forward and talk about a little bit about what this means from a strategy perspective. A resource is essentially some sort of an asset that one has or has control over. If you own a mine, if you're a silver mine company and you own a mine, then you have access to that resource. You have access to silver. If you're an oil company and you own an oil well, you have access to that oil. If you've invented the iPhone, you have access to the intellectual property associated with that particular product or service, that invention, the iPhone. That's a resource. Also, the people that you have contracted to work for you and that your employees or other people like that, if you're a sports team, the people that you have under contract, the baseball players or whomever, are resources that you have. Capabilities or competencies in organizations is doing things with those resources. The ability to, if you're a sports team, you're practicing and you could perform a double play fast or better than others, and perhaps even can move the ball around more quickly and have some potential to go beyond a double play and have an occasional chance at a triple play, something like that. That's the capability. All sports teams at the professional level, of course, have some of these capabilities, but they vary one team to another because that's part of the team interaction that goes together. Other organizations have the capability to build customers or to innovate, in order to the capability to manufacture products effectively, to do customer service well or not so well in the negative capability side. So when you think about it, any organization does stuff. It does it because it's done it for years and it's very good at it. It's learned how to do it well. It brings in new people. They get trained in how to do that. You're a restaurant. Restaurant has the capability to prepare meals. The meals are consistent. No matter really who the chef is, although in some cases, there's some issues there or there's some variation. But a restaurant like Applebee's, you go to one or the other, they know they have a menu and the capability to prepare those meals and deliver them. So that's what we mean by capabilities. Resources and capabilities together are the competitive assets that an organization has in order to win in its marketplace. Let's just think about this a little bit more in terms of types or categories. If you think about resources, a couple of the examples I gave, like silver and silver mine or oil well, those are physical resources. You could think of a lot of those: equipment, land, hotels that are in very good locations, like the Marriott Marquis in Times Square has a location, physical asset that they have a lease on that land. That is a resource. There are also financial resources. You have a lot of money. There's a lot of things you can do. But there's technological assets. I mentioned the iPhone and the patents around that. Patents that the Tesla, the electric car company has. They have patents around that. So they have technical assets. Organizational resources are people, well-trained. An organization, like, for example, a baseball team, a football team, has a lot of people contracted to work on that, to work with the team or be part of the team. So you have some organizational resources as well. You might have to remember you have intangible assets. In addition to that, you have just human assets and intellectual capital. Think about, I mentioned the tangible assets is the patents for particular technology. The intangible is the people that know how the patent works, how to make this all come together, those kinds of things. You also have brand, you have your reputation, those things. Companies have partnerships and relationships with other companies, which makes them very strong. Apple, as an example, has a strong relationship with a supplier, Foxconn in China, which makes their products effectively and has done so for many years effectively. The culture itself, what it's like to work somewhere, people feel that they understand what the organization is after, those kinds of things, those are all intangible resources. So when you think about an organization and its resources, you want to think about these physical things that it has at its disposal, but also these less tangible things that they have at their disposal. One way you want to think about resources and capabilities is sort of this VRIN kind of a model. Is what this company or this organization has valuable in some way from a competitive perspective? Does it help them succeed? An organization that has extremely good customer service, is that a valuable thing? If it's valuable, then one of the things you think about strategically is how do we make more people aware of our capability and the fact that we're better at anyone else than customer service. And maybe you can do an ad campaign, or you can launch additional products or additional services that people are aware of, so you become more of a distinct offering in the marketplace. Is it rare? Are you the only one that can do it? Apple has patents. It has a certain kind of screen. It was very careful to sue Samsung about the rounded corners that it has. It's rare when it's patented or whenever you're the only one that has access to it. So if it's valuable and rare, you're well on your way, as long as somebody can't copy it, which is what Samsung was trying to do with the Apple's phone design. In other words, it's not imitable. Inimitable. You can't imitate it. You can't make it make something like it that doesn't violate the rules, but it's still, doesn't violate the law, but still customers see it as the same thing. And the last thing is that somebody can't just do something that's different and substitute another product or service for it. So if you have a resource or a capability that is valuable, for example, the real estate of the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, it's rare. There's only one spot like that, right, where they're located. There's other restaurants, other hotel areas down there, but that particular one. Other people really can't imitate it because it's in a specific location, and there's only one Times Square. And you really can't substitute for it. You have a resource or capability that provides you a competitive advantage. That's the way you think about resource and competitive advantage, and why we think about capabilities and resources and what they are and where they go. One of the things that we step back right now and talk about is that none of this is simple. Organizations are very complex in social environments, culture, interpersonal relationships. We'll spend a lot of time when we talk about cases and the like about how complex organizational environments are, and how there's not a simple straight line of cause and effect, but there's causal ambiguity. If you do something in the market, you launch a new product, it's not completely clear why it's successful. It's successful based upon what you do, but it's also successful on how well you do it, and the specifics of what you do. Do you have a good service offering to go with the particular product offering? But also how your competitors respond. So there's a lot of causal ambiguity. This makes it very difficult to figure out how all resources and capabilities integrate to produce this competitive advantage, which is what we're after. So none of this is simple. It's never once and done. It's always you do it, and then you see what happens, and then you do it again and do it again. So policy and strategy is really tantamount to continually learning from what's happening and moving forward. That is the notion of a dynamic capability, the final thing we'll talk about in this module. How well does the organization try things? They're difficult. There's a response, and then try something else that moves the ball forward, that moves you down the field, to use these sports metaphor. But really, just to continually learn and adapt and change and try and improve and become better and better and better with your resources and your capabilities. So just to summarize for a second, remember we talked about the external environment, and we talked about how we need to look inside ourselves and see what we're made of. We have the financial metrics we talked about that help you get some facts, and then we start thinking about what resources and capabilities we have to move forward. That's what we begin to position ourselves of gathering all of the data. Then we start looking at what we'll talk about in the next lecture, which is how you start to analyze that data to figure out what you can do and what you should be doing. And the first little analysis tool we'll talk about in the next lecture is what's called a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. How does what we know about ourselves, how does that work in our favor or how does it work against us? That's what we'll talk about in the next lecture. We'll see you then.